David Klinger. I've been asked to give the benediction to this little wake that we're having, this funeral. That's why I'm dressed in black. And I'm going to endeavor to do it in the form of a history lesson. And if you'll give me about 10 minutes, I'll endeavor to accomplish that. I want to first of all acknowledge that I'm a board member of Boise Working Together, the group that brought you the citizen initiatives in 2019 on stadiums and libraries. I'm also assisting one candidate for Boise City Council, although I don't live in that candidate's district, so I can't vote for that candidate. But I'm not representing either of those two individuals or groups today. I'm speaking only for myself. And I'm not an expert on housing or housing affordability or homelessness like many of the people that you see behind me. But after 35 years in government, in the media, I do feel I'm well versed in perceiving evasion when we're not getting the true story. We can't know where we're going on housing and housing affordability and a housing crisis unless we stop for a moment and acknowledge how we got here. We're witnessing a bait and switch, more shucking and jiving, or what we down south used to call the old okey doke, when we're giving a misleading picture of what has happened and why it happened. I think we're seeing in Boise today the culmination of at least a decade's worth of over-promotion and under-preparedness by a city that in part helped to create this housing crisis. This Boise housing crisis didn't just jump out of a stump one day while no one was looking. We were here all the time, but we weren't connecting the dots. We weren't seeing the picture that was being drawn for us. I don't use the word create lightly. Market forces do dictate housing supply and affordability. The exodus from California and elsewhere has affected neighboring states for years, but only recently has it become a flood. No one predicted this pandemic and how it would upset the demographics of the nation and artificially turn Boise's real estate market upside down. But I would argue that city policies and practices have consciously helped to create this housing bind that we now find ourselves in. So how do you create a housing crisis? Well, you do it in stages over a long time. And you do it in little increments, in bits and pieces. One tenant, one homeowner, one Boisean at a time. First, you keep the spigot of in-migration on full force with the tools and the bully pulpit of government in concert with your boosters in the growth industry and the Chamber of Commerce. You tout Boise at trade shows and mayor's conferences and civic gatherings and job fairs all across the nation. You invite in delegations from other states and cities like Boise did in the early 2000s, with civic delegations that came here all the way from Lexington, Kentucky to hear former Mayor Beater rhapsodize about the Boise miracle. You oversell this place, you overpromise, and you overpromote, and then you watch the floodgates open. Second, you subsidize out-of-state developers to build high-priced, hotel-styled condominium projects in downtown Boise with taxpayer support for future arrivals, offering little or no affordability to the Boiseans who are already here. Remember the Fowler and how it came into being with payouts to Los Angeles developers from the pockets of Boise taxpayers? Even Mayor Beater and City Hall agreed that in hindsight, that probably wasn't a good thing to do. Quote, from 2011 to 2015, there was no production of new affordable housing units in Boise. The city's very own report to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development admitted. Third, you dawdle as Boise's neighborhoods commodify themselves, as established residential neighborhoods morph into overnight hotel zones. This city still does not possess an accurate tally of the number of houses and apartments that have been taken out of the monthly rental market and turned into short-term, ready cash generating Airbnbs. Fourth, you watch as every zoning decision, every demolition, every relaxation of city policy relentlessly chips away at Boise's affordable housing inventory. It doesn't occur all at once. It takes place in ones and twos and threes as housing for average people withers away, only to be replaced by housing for an entirely new and wealthier class of Boiseans. Drip, drip, drip. It appeared in 2017 when a fourth unneeded drugstore was proposed for State and 16th Streets, a heavy-handed plan that would have displaced the working poor, 23 lower-income singles and families just trying to get ahead in this city. The Idaho Statesman ferreted out the fact that the property owner, the developer, was an Albertsons vice president, who concurrently was sitting on the board of the Interfaith Shelter, professing to be concerned about homelessness while he was actively creating more of it. It occurred just about 2 weeks ago with the demolition of the classic Art Deco Travis apartment building on 17th Street and the loss of 12 more of its affordable rental apartment units. And it's happened to these good people here in this place, these several dozen Boiseans who will lose their homes for Boise's newest priority, the luxury student housing at trendy new Ridenbaugh Place. Folks, you know, in my era, when I was in college, the words student and luxury never appeared in the same sentence. We tell Boiseans who have lived their whole lives here that it's time for them to go, while we cater to students who will be here for only 4. That, my friends, is utter contempt for the people of this city. Drip, drip, drip. The recipe for a genuine housing crisis is to keep the inflow of newcomers high while you chisel away at the existing housing supply by demolishing affordability and replacing it with unaffordability. The old okey doke shouldn't be allowed to be played again. We're told that we now have a crisis on our hands and that everyone must fix it. We're told the solution is to simply build more houses. Build, build, build until we just can't build anymore. Induce developers with breaks and credits and exemptions and bonuses to build what they already should be providing to this community. Dismantle our zoning code so we can squeeze more and more people into smaller and smaller spaces in our neighborhoods. Constantly raise the specter of sprawl to those who won't accept forced density. And never mind what sort of city we'll be left with when the crisis passes. Folks, I think we're experiencing in Boise, Idaho today what I call a tale of two cities. You remember that book, we all read it in high school. I think our city leaders see an entirely different city than we do at ground level. I think they see this. The city of Boise's new glossy 4-color marketing brochure. It's filled with happy, smiling faces, revelers in our city parks, grooving over food trucks and ale houses, marveling at art installations and dog parks, and all the other gifts that a benevolent city government bestows on its people right around election time. It's a world of champagne tastes, while many Boiseans subsist through pandemic and social unrest on a beer budget. Those are good things, they're accomplishments, but they don't represent the lives of average people in this city. Nor do they reflect the reality of what this city is becoming. The Boise reality for these good Ridenbaugh people being forced to make way for luxury student housing is not a glitzy, colorful coffee table brochure. It's a horror story, printed in stark black and white for folks who are largely being treated as invisible. They're in an entirely different kind of marketing brochure. It's a picture book of families that can't afford their first home in Boise, renters with no place to rent, homeowners who are being taxed out of their homes, native Boiseans who can no longer afford to stay here, neighborhoods being eviscerated by out-of-state speculators, soon to lose their zoning and be frozen out of the decision-making process at City Hall. And evictees like these people, these Ridenbaugh folks, who once again, just like the people up in Blue Valley, just like the people over in McGurdio Park, and elsewhere throughout this city, have been treated in bad faith by a community that's still drunk on growth. Boise is rapidly becoming a stratified city of the haves, the have-less, and the have-nots. Increasingly, the less favored are now being told they must go. There is no more room for them at the inn. Our city is being remade into something else entirely. A city, as I see it, that now risks losing its soul. Thank you. My last name is Klinger, Klinger, David.